What's going on, guys? Welcome back to #AskGSM here today, episode 462 for Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great week so far. 25 years ago today, Bad Blood 1997, the debut of Kane and still one of the greatest matches in WWE history. Shawn Michaels, Taker, first ever Hell in the Cell match. I'll be gone today, will not be available all day after I'm done recording here. But I would have a chance. I'm hoping to have a chance in the next couple of days to rewatch that match because it's still a classic all these years later. But nonetheless, October 5th, very significant for that alone. And today we're answering your questions on October 5th from YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below. I'll include your question in next week's edition. First question comes from Nike only from YouTube. Their question was, if Bianca Belair loses to Bayley, should she turn heel? Also have the Street Profits break up, turn Montez Ford heel, and have them feud with Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae going into WrestleMania next year. Should Bianca turn heel? No. I feel like Bayley kind of fulfills that top heel role on Raw right now. I mean, you could turn Bianca heel, and then you have Bayley right underneath her. I don't know. I feel like, but I would rather see personally Alexa Bliss go heel. She's better off in that role. And if Bianca goes heel, Becky's obviously coming back as a babyface. Bianca will be a heel at some point, but if you have Becky come back as a babyface, Bianca's a heel, you're running that back again at some point in the next 6 months. Because they kind of have to, if they're the two biggest stars in that division. I do want to see that run back at some point with Becky and Bianca. Maybe it goes full circle with Becky beating Bianca, a lot like she did the first time, this time clean. Because they've told the story that Becky has never been able to beat, Bianca without cheating. So I feel like that would be a great story to tell. Not now, though. We're already coming off their feud late last year. Their feud going into WrestleMania. Their feud going into SummerSlam. I'm ready for something new. So the answer is no. I don't mind the idea of a Bianca. I mean, you mentioned, what if it was Bianca and Montez versus Johnny and Candice? I mean, maybe. I don't know if that's exactly a WrestleMania match. Johnny and Montez doesn't sound like a WrestleMania match now, but it might in 6 months. I don't know. It's an idea. And I think Bianca will be a heel at some point. She was great in that role in NXT as that bitch heel, the EST and whatever. She was fantastic. She's still over enough right now and doesn't feel stale to the point where I wouldn't do that. At least not yet. Micah Does It from YouTube, their first question was, which match would you want to see if you had to pick one? Johnny Gargano versus Seth Rollins, Johnny Gargano versus Brock Lesnar, Gunther versus Brock Lesnar, and Brock Lesnar versus Bobby Lashley U.S. title match. To me, it's got to be Gunther Brock Lesnar. Lesnar and Bobby U.S. title match. Lesnar would not be caught dead chasing, holding that United States Championship. Lashley's had a very good run, but, I mean, Brock has... There's a reason why Brock has never challenged for a mid-card championship. He doesn't give a fuck about the mid-card titles. They are beneath him. As important as they're trying to make them out to be right now, they are still beneath Brock Lesnar. Now, you said Gunther, but you did not say Gunther Brock IC title. Though that would be cool, I don't see that happening. Gunther Brock alone is definitely a possibility at some point. What I would be doing if I'm Triple H, because Brock has lost his last several matches in WWE. He lost the WrestleMania. He lost the Roman 3 times. Now, he did win the WWE Championship briefly at the beginning of the year, and then, won the Fatal 5-Way, won the Rumble, whatever. But overall, he hasn't had exactly... I think he's lost more than he's won. So I would, quote-unquote, rehab Brock. I mean, Brock is Brock, but I still would not have him losing consistently. Build him back up, again, quote-unquote, build him back up, with a couple more wins, regardless of who it's against, and then build maybe at this point next year, early 2024. I'm thinking long-term here. You have Gunther beat Brock. That's what I would do. Johnny and Brock, I'm sorry, I love Johnny. I could not take Johnny Gargano seriously against Brock. And I felt the same way about Finn. Like, it sounds like a fun match, and it probably could, but even more than, like, Finn Balor, Johnny is really small, and he's also not nearly as established yet. Maybe if he wins a world championship on the main roster, then maybe. Right now, that would be a total squash. as great as Gargano is. Not only the U.S. title thing, but Brock and Bobby, we already saw earlier this year. I do want to see a rematch. I think they could have a better match without the shenanigans and just in a better atmosphere and a better match if Bobby wasn't hurt. But again, it's a match we've already seen. And then Johnny versus Seth, I think that's going to be great. But of the two, if I had to choose, Gargano versus Rollins or Gunther and Brock, I'm going Gunther and Brock. I feel like that's less of a possibility than Johnny and Seth. And their paths are inevitable as far as crossing at some point on the Raw roster. Gunther and Brock, I'm not as sure. With Brock at this point, he's only facing certain people multiple times. We're lucky if we get a Brock, dream match, quote unquote, with someone like a Bobby Lashley, as we did at the Rumble, or Gunther, as seen hopefully at some point in the near future. John Cena, their next question. John Cena has 16 world title wins. If Randy Orton hypothetically had 16 title wins and WWE did a match between the two to break the record, who would get the title first? Probably Cena. I mean, I'm not booking it, but if you're asking who I would put over, I would probably have Cena win. I like Randy Orton a lot, but Cena they tout him up as the greatest of all time, the greatest of this generation, blah, blah, blah. It would make sense for him to be the one to break Ric Flair's fake record of 16 world championships won in WWE and go on to win 17. Orton, not to say he's not nearly as decorated, because he is. A lot of world titles, Grand Slam champion, all that great stuff. Cena is just the greatest of all time. I'm not saying he is, but that's what they make him out to be. And I would probably have him win. I don't know if he would want to win, and Orton might win, realistically. You said hypothetically, who would I have win? Personally, I would have Cena win. Their third question. Who would you love to see defeat Bobby Lashley for the United States Championship, and when should it happen? I don't know, who should be the one to do it. Looking at the Raw roster right now, no one name really stands out. I know they did Lashley and Ali on Monday's Raw and told the story that Ali looked good in defeat. One, I did not get the sense they were building up Ali beyond this 1 week. Maybe they will, and I'll be pleasantly surprised, but I don't see that being the case. Ali is a great choice if they were to really get behind him. But Dominic Dijakovic, I think would be cool. Again, another guy they really have to rehab, and they would really have to get behind him with the push and a repackage and everything. Just really the name. He already kind of looks like Dominic Dijakovic. Just got to change the name back and get rid of the dumb music, give him his old music back, blah, blah, blah. Realistically, who's it probably going to be? Rollins, honestly, on Monday's Raw. I'm not really sure why they would do Rollins and Lashley 2 coming up on the season premiere of Raw if they did not intend on doing a title change. Rollins already lost to Lashley via pinfall a couple of weeks ago. It wasn't like a DQ finish or Rollins or whatever. Lashley won that match by pinfall, which tells me if they're doing it again, why would they want Rollins to lose again? Especially if the Riddle feud wraps up on Saturday. So I'm thinking Rollins is probably going to be the one to win that championship come Monday's Raw. So I don't really know who else I would have. I don't love that idea, but Rollins is great. He needs a championship. And listen, if Roman Reigns has the world championship, if he's holding that hostage right now, the U.S. championship is the next best thing. And Rollins is obviously a top talent. Him holding that mid-card title is a nice consolation prize, I would say. And their fourth question here, out of all the wrestlers that got released in the last few years by Vince McMahon, what feud do you wish we would have gotten with Roman Reigns for the titles? I'm picking Samoa Joe. There's a long list of people they got rid of, people they've since brought back. Without even really looking at the list, I'll just agree with you. I think Roman and Joe, with Roman as heel champion, tribal chief. I know Joe's not related to them. Samoa Joe, that is. Roman's real name is Joe as well. I feel like that would be a great fucking feud. They had some really, really good matches throughout 2017, 2018, and some not so good matches, but a majority of the matches were really, really good. I feel like they had a match or two in 2019 as well. I don't know if they had a match in 2019, because they were doing that whole storyline where Roman got hit by a car and they blamed Joe. I'm not even sure. He wasn't behind it, but I'm not sure if they had a match during that period. But anyway, I do feel like Joe and Roman in 2021, 2022 would have been awesome. We'll probably never get it with Joe now being in AEW, obviously, and he's having a good run over there. He's the current Ring of Honor TV champion, for whatever that's worth. But I do think Roman versus Joe, if they really, if Triple H was in charge a year ago, first of all, Joe would not have been let go, and he probably would have given him the Shayna Baszler renewed push, where it's not like exactly a fresh face in the title scene, because Shane has gotten title shots before. But it would be a chance for him to really, get that renewed push, be back in the main event scene as far as with the men's division goes, and get another championship opportunity, and hopefully even, maybe not beat Roman Reigns, but I feel like Joe and Roman with the roles reversed in 2021, 2022 would have been awesome. So I agree with you on that. Central Man Network, their question was, who's your MVP of AEW in 2022 so far? Probably your most valuable player. I think MJF has been the standout for AEW this year, and Punk as well before he got suspended. You kind of have to go Jon Moxley. Jon Moxley is that one guy. I know he went into rehab on his own via his own admission late last year. But beyond that, he's always been there. He's not really taken much time off. He's not really hurt. He's the most reliable guy in the roster. He kind of filled that same role in WWE. He was the ultimate workhorse for WWE for a few years after the Shield broke up, and he still is now for AEW. He's the face of the company in many ways. He's a big star. He's had multiple championship reigns, a lot of great matches this year as well. Formed the Blackpool Combat Club, really hasn't lost it all. So I would, if you talk about most valuable player, it would probably have to be Jon Moxley. You could choose MJF because he's been one of the better parts of the product for the better part of the year. Punk as well. No one else really comes to mind. Adam Page has had a really underwhelming year to me, coming off the hot closing to 2021 that he had. But anyway, I probably would go Jon Moxley. He's really been their MVP for 2021, and he's had a great year, and MJF would be... the only reason I wouldn't put MJF in that conversation, because he's been probably one of the more must-see parts of the product. He took time off for they took him off TV for 3 months. He was probably the best part of the product for the first 5 months of the year. Overall, though, I would probably go, from a business standpoint specifically, Jon Moxley, because that's the definition of MVP anyway. Paulie S. from Facebook. Quick story about Paulie S. Paulie has been listening here to the show, on and off. He was one of my very first viewers of this show, back when it was still a video show. I don't know how early he's been listening to exactly, but Paulie's been sending in questions since 2014. So shout out to Paulie. Haven't heard from you in a while. I know we're connected on Facebook, but you always seem like you're doing well. You do reach out once in a while. You're great. So thank you to Paulie for sending in the question, and thank you for being a longtime viewer of the show. Again, he has been watching and listening long enough back to when I was doing the show on video, which I did actually for a couple of years. There was a point where I did hashtag on Mondays, and it was a video show, 2013, 2014, and aside from a few weeks here and there in college in 2015, it was largely a video show up until late 2016. And it was on Mondays, and I think around the time we moved it to Wednesdays in late 2016, almost exactly 6 years ago, actually. It actually might have been 6 years ago today. It was either 6 years ago today or 6 years ago next week. We moved it to Wednesdays. It was, there might have been before that, but either way, it was, Paulie was one of those first people listening to the show, so I appreciate him for that, and it's crazy. He might have been here since the very beginning in 2013, but I know he was sending in questions as early as 2014 as well. So anyway, his question was, if you could trade anyone from WWE or AEW, who would it be, vice versa, and why? Great question. I think from AEW to WWE, I would trade... Keith Lee would be one. I feel like, he's done well in AEW, won half of the tag team champions. He hasn't been buried, but he's a guy I feel like never really got his just due in WWE. Not to say he can't get it in a couple of years if he goes back. I would like to see him back right now. Him and Roman Reigns could have a kick-ass feud over that top championship. So, obviously, if Keith didn't go to AEW, he probably would have been back in WWE by now via Triple H. So, Keith, kind of a cheating answer because I know he's already been there, but so that's one of my answers. The other two are AEW homegrown talents, that being Ricky Starks and Powerhouse Hobbs. I feel like both guys would do well in WWE. Ricky Starks specifically. He's got the charisma for it. The guy can work. He's great. And I think Starks and WWE would do really, really well. And I'm thinking of people that aren't exactly as high on the card as they should be right now. Not to say they won't be in a couple of months from now, but I'm saying right now I wish Keith Lee was in a more prominent spot on the show. Hobbs and Stark, same thing. So I'm going to say those three to WWE. I don't know if it's a fair trade exactly, but the three people I would trade for them from AEW, or from WWE to AEW, Dolph Ziggler, Because you're probably thinking, oh, Dolph, like, who gives a shit about Dolph? But listen, Dolph Ziggler, I've always felt in a fresher environment outside of WWE would be fucking cool. I mean, Cody Rhodes, by all accounts, was in kind of the same spot. I mean, I was going to say by 2016 I cared more about Cody than I did Dolph, I guess. But even Cody, I mean, he was Stardust for a few years. He'd already been in WWE for about a decade. He was only going to get beyond a certain level. No one really gave a fuck about him. He was kind of a generic, directionless mid-carder that made the most of every gimmick he had, but he wasn't going to get beyond a certain level. Went away, became Ring of Honor champion, won a title in New Japan. All these companies went to Impact. So, NWA, became NWA World's Heavyweight Champion. So, I feel like Dolph, not to say the time for that would have been 5-6 years ago for Dolph and not in 2022. But I still feel like Dolph Ziggler, although he's probably content in WWE, would be pretty fucking cool in another company. I don't know if he would be world champion in AEW. Probably not. I feel like that'd be pretty dumb. But I feel like he can get a renewed push in AEW and do really well for himself. Ricochet would be another guy you're probably thinking, oh, he's damaged goods, you're giving AEW the scraps here. But again, he's another guy. Unlike Dolph, though, who has not been in WWE for fucking 15 years, Ricochet's only been here, shockingly, for almost 5, not even 5 years. He was in NXT for a little over a year, came in, he's been on the main roster for about 3.5 years now. He's done okay. I mean, he was an Intercontinental Champion, United States Champion. He hasn't done terribly, but I mean, he's not nearly as special as he once was, and nowhere near the same sensation he was 5 years ago when he was in Lucha and in New Japan doing stuff over there. Ricochet in AEW, the problem with that, the only issue with it is that he's just a guy that would not really stand out. I mean, he is one of the best in the world as far as being a high flyer, but AEW already has a lot of that, from like Lee Moriarty and Dante Martin and Ray Phoenix. They have a lot of those type of talents already. Him against any of those guys would be great, but I just feel like it wouldn't be exactly, like he wouldn't be as special as he could be in WWE because they already have a lot of people who could do what he can do, you know? But still, I feel like he would be probably better off. He's been getting more TV time and more wins under Triple H. Not many, but I feel like him and AEW would be interesting. And the last one, AJ Styles. I feel like if you're probably shitting on, Ziggler and Ricochet, those are bad picks. If you want to even it out, AJ Styles. And the only reason I say that is because, I have no issue with him closing out his career in WWE. He's had a great run, by all accounts, in WWE over the last 6-7 years. The problem is that right now, at least for the last year or two, they have done jack shit with AJ Styles under Vince McMahon's regime and during the Triple H regime as well. It's pretty bizarre and bewildering to me personally, just considering AJ is one of the best in the world still to this day. And they don't really have him involved in anything of note. He did the Omos tag team, which was kind of a waste of time. Yeah, it helped Omos, but Omos is fucking terrible, and he really hasn't improved all that much. So how much, did that really serve much of a purpose in the long run? And he's done absolutely nothing all year. Again, Triple H has been in power now for a couple of months, and they have done absolutely fucking nothing with AJ Styles. Him in AEW as an automatic top guy, he can go. He's great for PR. He's not going to, fucking blow up in a media scrum like CM Punk, who I love, but let's face facts here. And he can have great matches with former, like Kenny Omega. That's the match that he and Kenny always wanted, specifically Kenny. He can reunite with the Bucks, maybe do something there. And the whole Elite stuff I know has kind of run its course. I get it. But him being back in the same company as those guys, I know he's working with Finn Balor right now, but being the same company as Omega and Adam Cole, also former Bullet Club leaders, would be pretty cool. So I'm going to say Starks, Hobbs, and Keith Lee for Ziggler, AJ Styles, and Ricochet. Maybe not exactly a fair trade because AJ Styles is a bigger star than pretty much any of the other people combined, but still, I feel like any of those guys switching spots in their respective companies would be pretty cool. And a change of scenery can go a long way in really rehabbing one's career. Paulie's second question, aside from Brock Lesnar, aside from Braun Breaker, who else do you think will be the next breakout star with this current NXT? I wrote a whole article about this for Bleacher Report about a week and a half ago, kind of listing everyone I thought, 10 people from NXT that I thought could really do well on the main roster, and 5 that I don't think would do well on the main roster. People like fucking Briggs and Jensen. Maybe they do well. They're fucking abysmal to me personally, but Wendy Chu, I like her work in the ring, but the character sucks. As far as people that I think could really break out, I mean, Carmelo Hayes, you mentioned him in a later question I'll get to in a moment, but he's the next biggest star behind Braun. He can go as far as Braun, if not farther. I mean, the guy's been great for a very long time now. I followed his career probably for the last 6.5 years. The first time I think I saw him in action, I may have seen him in action before this, in like 2015 or something, but the first time I really remember seeing his work was in 2016. Saw him at an indie show, interviewed him afterward for a school project, and I followed his career ever since on the independent scene. Got hired in 2021, obviously, by WWE, and he's been fucking killing it ever since. Carmelo Hayes is awesome, and I'm very happy to see him getting his just due in WWE. I feel like he's the next big breakout star. I think Waller can go far. I think he's really good. Tony D'Angelo is also someone that's really exceeded my expectations. I wasn't a big fan of the gimmick from the get-go. It's very stereotypical and stupid, but it's been entertaining so far in NXT, so I think he's another guy that could be really successful. Roxanne Perez, Cora Jade, two people I think that could really go far. Not anytime soon. They're still very, very young and green. Not that inexperienced. I mean, they were wrestling in other promotions before they came to WWE, but they still need a lot of seasoning in a lot of ways, and I feel like them in the future could be big stars for that women's division on the main roster. But those are a few. Speaking of Carmelo Hayes, I'll answer your fourth question next and your third question last. His third question was, will we ever see a Montez Ford, or his next question, will we ever see a Montez Ford versus Carmelo Hayes feud in the future? Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I feel like it would be cool, though. Hayes and Montez would probably have some kick-ass matches, high-flying matches. Maybe Ford has Bianca in his corner at that point. Maybe Carmelo has that woman from NXT that he was flaunting over when she was on the show and sang on the show, I think at the beginning of the year. I forgot her name, but no, Montez-Carmelo feud. I mean, I'm not going to say, oh, we're definitely going to see it someday. We're probably going to see the match at some point. Feud, Montez Ford as a single-star babyface, although he's probably made to be a heel at some point. Montez Ford babyface, Carmelo Hayes heel. That would be a really entertaining feud. I'm sure we're going to get that match regardless of whether it's a full-fledged feud or not in the future. And his last question here, if The Rock declines WrestleMania next year, what do you think the WWE's plan B would be? What is their plan B? It's a good question. So here's the thing. I think they should, regardless of The Rock thing, and I'm very skeptical The Rock's coming in. I don't think The Rock is coming in for WrestleMania. We've been in this spot for fucking like a decade now. He had his last real match at WrestleMania 10 years ago. I was pulling for Rock and Roman in 2014, dude. That was 8 years ago. If it hasn't happened yet, I don't think it's ever happening. And I know I'm not saying that ship has sailed and the time to do it would have been 5 years ago. No, the time to do it would be now. I mean, Roman is at his, I don't know why I said AJ. Roman right now is at his apex in WWE. As a character, as a heel, at his title reign. Now would be the time to do it come WrestleMania. I just don't think, if he's not really willing to make time, I know he's making movies and shit, but listen, if he really wants to prioritize it and come back, he fucking would. And it just, to me, sounds like he wants to do it. He's just not prioritizing it. So that's the problem. I don't think we're getting The Rock. It really should be Roman and Cody at WrestleMania. If it's not Roman and Cody, a dark horse is Roman. I mean, Roman will be in the main event. Unless something happens or he gets sick again or he gets hurt or whatever, he will be in the main event of one of those nights of WrestleMania. A dark horse is Roman and Braun Breaker. I don't really want to see that at WrestleMania next year. I think that's way too fucking soon, but it's an idea. I don't really know what else. I know people have said, oh, what about Sami as the ultimate person to take the belt from Roman? I don't see that personally. I see him and Owens winning the tag team titles. That would be awesome, and I think that should happen. Him winning the world championship, I just don't see it. No one else really honestly comes to mind. I've said this before, but no one else really makes sense. It's either Rock and Roman, and Rock loses, obviously. And I don't want to see Rock and Roman on one night and Cody and Roman on the other. I mean, that's just spreading Roman too thin. What if he gets hurt on one night, on night one? I just don't think that's smart. So, yeah, I would just do Rock and Cody, if not Rock and Roman, probably Mania. And I don't think Rock's coming in. I think Rock and Cody's probably the match they're going to do come Mania. Hopefully, if Cody's cleared by that point, I guess we'll find out in due time. But it's more a matter of whether he can be cleared by the Rumble. I think he will be, but that's also a case of me just saying that because I want him to be. So time will tell. If it's not Rock and Roman, I'm thinking Cody and Roman, hopefully. That's the match, honestly, I probably want to see more at this point if Cody can go. And if not either of those two, there is a big fucking gap as far as matches that make sense, as far as big WrestleMania main events of people that could beat Roman, at least in my opinion, or big money matches anyway. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine. Check out a show on YouTube as well. Real Honesty with John Ritland. His first question was, so what can we expect from NXT tonight? Simply a logo change, or a complete rebranding? I'm hoping for more of the latter. So obviously he sent this in before NXT on Tuesday. It, honestly, to me, really just felt like a changing of the logo and the graphics, and really not much else. It was a pretty mid-fucking show. Not to say there wasn't anything good on the show, but I've seen far better episodes from NXT under the NXT 2.0 banner in the last couple of weeks and months. So, to me, it felt like they changed the set a little bit. Not drastically. They're still in the fucking PC. They're not back at Full Sail, which doesn't make that much of a difference, but they slapped a new logo on it. The storylines were still the same. They didn't really introduce anyone overly new. The Brawling Brutes made an appearance. Veer came back to reunite with Sangha. Beyond that, it's the same theme song, I think. It still feels like the exact same show. It did not feel like Black and Gold to me. Not that I thought it would be, but I thought they would make more of an effort to make it feel like a different show than what it was before. Which is a shame, because I feel like even NXT 2.0, they've had some really good shows in the last couple of months, I would say. But, I don't know, it still doesn't feel like must-see TV. It does not feel like a show that should be on television. It should be on fucking Peacock. It does not feel like it should be a 2-hour show. A lot of the matches are developmental matches. NXT has never more felt like developmental than it does right now. It just shouldn't be on television. And last night's show was only one show, but I didn't walk away from that episode thinking, oh man, the new era of NXT is here. Let's behold, the new era of NXT. It's so great, and we're getting all these indie talents back, and they're really focusing on the matches more. They have lately, in the last couple months. The show isn't awful. It's not nearly as bad as it was a year ago, but it just does not feel like appointment television. And there's certain stuff I dig, certain people I'm into and stuff, but certain people I'm a fan of. A lot of people I'm a fan of them on that show. But overall, that episode on Tuesday did not really make me feel overly optimistic that major changes are coming to NXT beyond the logo, which is a shame. They really had an opportunity, and maybe they still will, to really shake things up, make it feel like not the NXT of old, they'll never be back at that point. But at least send the message that it's not the same creative direction as NXT 2.0, and it feels like we're still in that direction. And I know you're not going to have as significant of an overhaul as they had last year going from NXT to NXT 2.0. It's probably for the better, but on night one, if I'm watching that show for the first time in a while, and I'm thinking, let's see what they can do, I would not have walked away impressed or wanting to tune in the following week. I'll just put it that way. His second question. So last week's segment with Saraya, trying to pump up a revolution, quote-unquote, for the women's division, was it cringe-inducing or excruciatingly cringe-inducing? To me, it came across as forced, and Toni Storm felt like an afterthought. Yeah, it sucked. It sucked, and I'm really bummed because I was a big fan of the debut. I want to see her wrestle. We have no fucking clue if she can wrestle. We went on not a great rant, but a big tirade about this on WrestleRant Radio a week ago. So check that out. It's not here on the channel, but we did it on the podcast last Thursday, WrestleRantRadio.com. Check it out. And, so I won't go, what I'm saying is they won't go into great detail about it here. The segment just was no good, and not for any one particular reason. Yeah, she was nervous, but the promo itself sucked. The kind of veiled shots at WWE with the boss thing, I know she explained herself on Twitter. It just didn't come across well, and I can see why people would think it was a veiled shot at WWE. It was just fucking weird and unnecessary. And then she said it again on commentary during the match. They introduced the women's division, or what was fucking left of it. There was no women in the ring, and even Sky Blue and Willow, I think they're good, but I don't think they're in the division full time, are they? I have yet to see an all-elite graphic for either woman. So it's very weird, man. That segment was no good. A lot of Paige's lines were terrible. The match that followed was good. The lumberjack stipulation was also completely inconsequential and made no sense. It was a complete waste. So yeah, that whole segment was one giant mess, and I'm glad I'm not the only one that felt that way. It was the majority opinion, it seemed like. And I don't know, man. They got to bounce back tonight or in the next couple weeks with Saraya, because that was not a good segment and not ruined her momentum from the week before, but a lot of the goodwill that she had with people saying, that, you're back and we're so happy to see you back, myself included, kind of went away. A lot of that positive buzz for that women's division went away with one promo. It's kind of amazing, but hopefully they can bounce back and let it be a lesson as well. I won't go into a great tirade about that, or a big rant. I said great tirade again. Why did I say that? This grand tirade about it right now. But let it be a lesson that some people need to be scripted. A lot of people need to be scripted, or at least need bullet points. And I thought it was organic when it started, thinking, oh yeah, they're going to let her speak from the heart. But it just wasn't any fucking good. So hopefully that's a lesson to Tony Khan. Oh, all this creative freedom, it's so great. Fuck WWE. No, a lot of these people need a creative team and need some sort of direction in their promos, because that promo did not belong on national television. That was awful. His next question: with the return of NXT label for big NXT events, like the upcoming Halloween Havoc, will we see them go to bigger buildings again? And are they doomed to just stay in the CWC? So he's asking about, with the return of takeovers and stuff like that, will we see them back at like the Barclays Center or that big arena in Portland, the last takeover they did with fans back in early 2020? I don't think so. They did do one, the biggest building they've done an NXT show in the last couple of years since the NXT 2.0 reboot was for Stand and Deliver. And I was in that building, and I'm telling you right now, it was expected, but it was fucking embarrassing. Like, they literally shifted all the tickets that were scattered throughout the arena to one side of the crowd. Literally half of the building was tarped off because they only sold a couple thousand tickets. I thought I was at a fucking Ring of Honor show, circa 2014 or something. It was not good. It was not good. And the show itself was good, but as far as the turnout, it sucked. And that was actually a pretty big card as well. Like, you had Dolph in the card, you had a ladder match. That was when Gunther and LA Knight were still there. Pete Dunne, I think, was gone by that point. But Ciampa was still there at that point. And the show still did not feel like the takeovers of old. I've been to a lot of takeovers. That was the weakest quote-unquote takeover I've ever seen. And I just don't think, with the lack of buzz that brand has, and I'm not sure if they can ever get back that magic they had a couple of years ago. That was before AEW as well. AEW, being the shiny new toy, really took a lot of that, specialness away from NXT, and that they were never able to reclaim. I just don't see them doing the big buildings anymore. I honestly don't. Until they can create bigger names. And a lot of the appeal of those shows were the bigger names they had on the card. I mean, yeah, they were creating new stars, but they also had, fucking Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens and Shinsuke Nakamura, people that would draw those big crowds and people that would want to see those big moments in matches. We don't really have the big moments in matches in NXT anymore. The last year has been overly solid, I would say, but nothing I would say, oh man, that was drastically amazing. Like, they have a lot of great talent there now, but it's not what it once was, and it's not, I cannot, even in, over Mania weekend, they could not do 7,000 tickets, 10,000 tickets in a regular, like, Raw-sized building. Just, it was embarrassing. So, no, I don't see those days ever coming back. I hate to say it, even with it being branded as TakeOver. The glory days of NXT being, like, whatever would have been considered a third brand from 2017, 2018, 2019, with the takeovers they were doing and the live events and stuff, I feel like those days are long gone. They would be lucky to do 5,000 people, like, solid for one of those live specials. I hope they do more shows on the road, like more shows like that, and they're taping everything out of the PC nowadays from that fucking arena, and it just doesn't look good, dude. Like, I'm glad they're hopefully not doing War Games there this year, because it just didn't look good there. They're doing Halloween Havoc there in a couple weeks. It's like, can you do it somewhere else but the fucking PC? They're there every week. And I know they did the early takeovers from Full Sail, but Full Sail in that crowd is not the environment we have now in NXT. The Full Sail from 2014, 2015 is not the same environment we have now in 2022 in that NXT arena. So it's not even comparable. At Iwagu91, it's Wednesday. You know what that means. Do you think that the late Luke Harper had potential to be a main event talent in WWE had Vince McMahon given him a chance? Or, if he was still alive and had decided to stay, or go back to said company, Triple H would have given him a chance? ? That's a good question. If Triple H was in charge earlier, or if he was in charge now, would he go back? I feel like a Wyatt family reunion would have been cool, but he was making strides in AEW as a single star. He probably would have been I don't know about a world champion. I doubt he would have been a world champion. Tony Khan had that shit mapped out for years in advance. But I mean, he was a TNT champion for a little while, and he had a lot going for himself in 2020. He might have been one of those guys that would have had a great rookie year, but would have fizzled out after a while due to the booking and bringing in so many outside talents. He was one of the first ex-WWE guys that Tony Khan hired AEW in 2020, right, at the beginning of the pandemic. So he did well for himself. That was at a time that Matt Hardy was on TV a lot. He was doing well for himself. And I mean, Matt's not Luke Harper, but he's not Brody Lee, but he has not even really been on the show at all the last couple of years since then. But anyway, would he want to go back? Maybe. It sounded like from that interview he did right when he arrived in AEW in early 2020, I almost said 2021, it was 2020, which is crazy to think it's been that long. He did that interview and told Jericho that Triple H wanted to keep him, wanted him in NXT, wanted him to go to like fucking New Japan. He was willing to let him do that, and it just didn't work out. I don't know if he was bullshitting him or if he genuinely wanted him to stay. I don't know. Would he have given him a singles push? If he came back as Brody Lee, maybe. I'm not going to say he wouldn't have. I don't know. I feel like he's on the older side, so maybe not. But he may have just, WWE, Triple H, Vince, whoever, may have just seen Luke Brody as a stable guy and not much more, because he never got a prolonged singles push in WWE. He was Intercontinental Champion for a literal fucking month. He was TNT Champion for a month as well. But I mean, he was far more dominant than he was when he was Intercontinental Champion, a reign that most people don't even remember. So, anyway. I think Triple H may have given him a chance, but I think it was probably more likely he stayed put in AEW. He seemed very happy there before he passed. Raquel Rodriguez stated in an interview that she wants a secondary women's championship in the WWE. What do you think? Yeah, I saw that. So here's my thing. I've never really been high on that idea, but I think having another championship for the women that's a floating title works. I don't think it's necessary. I think you could just do a better job of having the Raw Women's Championship picture, the SmackDown Women's Championship picture, and then creating compelling feuds underneath. Because in a perfect world, if half the roster was women, half the roster was men, then yeah, it would make sense. It would make sense because you have a lot of women, you could do that, it makes sense. They have a fair amount of women, obviously, on Raw and SmackDown. Not enough to me to justify having a secondary title, which is why I think the tag titles are such a fucking disaster. And even now, bringing it back, I regret bringing them back or them bringing them back because it just doesn't mean anything. They don't have enough women to make it work. They don't have enough teams. If they did it across all three brands, then maybe, but they're not. It's only Raw and SmackDown. It just doesn't work, dude. If you got rid of that and then instituted in like a mid-card floating title for the women, then maybe. I'm not even really sure what it would be called. And how it would really differentiate itself from the main championships. I don't know. I mean, you would really have to put a lot of thought into that. But, yeah, that could work. In AEW, people think, AEW is a secondary women's championship. Why not WWE? I'm not saying a lot of people say that, but, I mean, you're fucking dumb if you feel that way, because AEW has one giant women's division. And WWE, if they were to merge their women's divisions, they would probably have two titles, too. I mean, I would, at that point, I would be like, that would be stupid. If they had one women's champion, then I would be like, that's silly. But because they have a brand split, or they're supposed to anyway, we have two titles. So technically, their like SmackDown Women's Championship, for example, is the TBS title. That's basically their TBS title. So they kind of already have a secondary title, and it's the SmackDown Women's Championship. Beyond that, though, I honestly don't really think any other championships are necessary. Do more, Queen of the Ring tournaments, Mae Young Classics. The tag titles are stupid. You can have take away the tag titles. Maybe you could do a floating mid-card belt. What the concept would be, I don't know. But you would have to make it different and unique and cool enough to really differentiate itself from the main titles they have already. Do you think Chad Gable will become Intercontinental or United States champion in the future? I don't. I feel like he's been there long enough. I know Triple H is in charge now, but I feel like they see him in a certain role as a tag team guy, as a utility guy to make other people look good. He can get some shine himself, but I feel like the days of him being like a breakout single star are probably behind us at this point. He's been on the main roster for 6 fucking years. Almost 6.5 years. It's not happening. But he is doing great in his current role, and he would definitely deserve it if it ever got to that, but I just don't see that happening. At BillMeister88, is Tony Khan losing a grip on the locker room, or is this all PR? I don't know if you mean like it's all PR's fault, or are they doing all of this like intentionally? It's all a work. The answer is it's definitely legit. I don't think they're staging fights between Andrade and Sammy on social media to get people talking so they can book them in a match. No, this is a very real situation between the two. I would be shocked if it was a quote-unquote work. It's definitely PR's fault for not doing more to... I mean, the fact that some of those tweets from both of those guys are still up, if I'm Tony Khan or if I'm that PR team, you fucking DM those people, email those people and say, hey, this is an awful look for our company. No one gives a fucking shit about that anniversary show on Wednesday. They're all talking about you two. Knock it off. Delete the tweets. Move on. Someone has to apologize or at least don't talk to each other. Fucking end it. Stop acting like children. And I feel the same way for Andrade. I think Sammy's an idiot. If anything, I mean, I just don't like Sammy Guevara at this point. But, you know, the guy's a great athlete. The guy just comes across like a complete fucking prick. You know, he's probably in the wrong here, but Andrade feeling the fire, going back and forth, doesn't help either. They're both fucking babies about this whole thing. Have him delete the tweets and move on. Like, put out a statement, apologize. I don't know. I mean, it's just embarrassing. Like, you don't see this shit in WWE a lot. Not that it never happens, but it's embarrassing, dude. It is embarrassing. Because at least in WWE, people, to a certain extent, are afraid of losing their jobs. In AEW, Andrade and Sammy clearly don't give a shit because they know they won't be fired by fucking Tony Khan. So... And the timing couldn't be worse, coming off the whole all-out media scrum, and they're still, you know, recovering from that black eye. It's just a mess. They need a fucking grip on the locker room, specifically Tony Khan and the PR team. I mean, it is really embarrassing at this point. The fact that it's even gotten to this point, in like a day or two after Tony Khan said in an interview, oh, it's 100% great right now, the locker room atmosphere. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it is. Because this shit happened the next day. You look like a fool for saying that. It makes Tony look like an idiot. It's embarrassing. So, yeah, it's not fake. It's not, you know, they're not doing this on purpose. It's just a bad look for the company, and they need to get their shit in order in that locker room. I mean, there's no doubt about that. We've been saying this for a while now, for as far back as the rumors have been going since the end of the summer. The fact the shit is still going on, even after all the talent meetings these people have had, is, like I said, embarrassing. In one word, it's just embarrassing. Next question comes from @noob_n_co_TV. Their question was, with Damage Control writing Asuka off and Alexa Bliss going to turn heel, hopefully anyway, will Bianca Belair retain the Raw Women's Championship this weekend? Speaking of, is WWE going to write Asuka off of TV after she got destroyed by Damage Control? No, I don't think. I mean, yeah, I mean, did she get destroyed on Monday? I don't remember. I mean, she did. I mean, she did backstage, but then she came back out. I don't think so. I don't think Asuka's going anywhere. If they need to write her out so she won't be in War Games, which I feel like she'd be a great addition to War Games, I wouldn't do that, then maybe. I don't think she's going anywhere, though. They still have to wait for Becky to be back, and they kind of need Asuka on the show, even if it's as a sidekick to Bianca right now, which I don't like. They need to position her more as a threat to Damage Control, and not as just a lackey to Bianca. I don't think she's going anywhere. Will Bianca retain this weekend? I'm going to say Bayley wins. It's really even because I think Bianca could retain. I could see Bayley winning. The point is, they have to extend this through Survivor Series. They're probably doing some sort of Survivor Series War Games match with Damage Control and a few other people, their opponents and their partners. So, if Bayley loses, what kind of heat do they have? Yeah, they have the tag titles. So what? I have a belt around my waist right now. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean? Bayley should probably win the Raw Women's Championship. Bianca doesn't get pinned. It makes sense. So, I'm going to say Bayley wins on Sunday, or rather Saturday. And that kind of further sets the stage for War Games in November. At Kyle Rochelle 19, if Bray Wyatt comes back at Extreme Rules, okay, I guess. I'm not a fan of him, but if the end goal is to go after Roman Reigns, he should not be the Fiend. When he's that character, fans think about he should win, or if he loses, he's done. Should he be a different character? Yes. I do not want to see Bray Wyatt back as the Fiend. It was cool when it first started, even though it's been a year and a half since we last saw the Fiend in WWE. Those 3 losses from Hell in a Cell 2019, Super Showdown 2020, and WrestleMania 36, that would have been 37, fucking killed that character. It's just, Rollins said it best himself, it's kind of hard to work a program with that character, because if you lose, where do you go? And it's just, I don't know. You have to tread really lightly with a character like that, and they didn't. They fucked it up from the get-go and only made it worse as it went on. Just was not good at all. Obviously I want to see Bray Wyatt back. I'm excited. He's probably going to do something new, but even if it was like a twist or like a a spin on his old cult-like character from early on, because I missed that music too. Even if it was like a remix of that, which was what the Fiend song was, I guess. I'm all for that. Anything but the Fiend, really, because that Fiend stuff, even the Firefly Funhouse, which I thought was great for a time, kind of grew old by the end. So I'm hoping he comes back with something completely different, if not something closer to what he was doing when he first debuted 10 years ago. At Justin David Kish, he's got 2 questions. Another one, who Justin's been listening for a very long time. I'm thinking, I don't know, Justin, you can refresh my memory, but 2015, 2016, maybe later than that, but maybe 2014. Justin's been around for a while, so I appreciate him sending in questions to the show. He's great. His first question was, do you think that Triple H, and John Ritland too, John Ritland's awesome. There's a lot of you guys that have been listening for a very long time. I could shout all of you out, but those are the ones that really stand out to me. He said, do you think that Triple H would consider bringing back Zach Wentz to reform MSK in the main roster, or has that ship sailed? Or will a second chance be given? I could see it maybe. I mean, it's been 6 months. It could happen. I'm still unclear as to why they fired him in the first place. Was it, I think it's because of the picture that surfaced with he had like the Hitler mustache on or whatever. Clearly it was something he took in private, that he was joking or whatever. It was still not a good look. His current wife, ex-wife, I forgot even what her name is, from Impact, posted it kind of out of spite. The whole situation was a mess. I thought that was why he got fired. WWE never really made it clear, because he very easily could have been fired as well due to the allegations of the abuse. I'm not even sure if that shit was cleared up. Like, did he do it? Did he not do it? Who do they believe? Sometimes they have to let people go based on allegations, not even the fact that they're innocent or guilty. If there's allegations alone, they have to get rid of the person. I don't know if that's true, but it's something along those lines. They have to at least suspend him or suspend that person or look into the allegations. He could be back at some point. I think they would have to give it a little bit more time and clear up that whole situation first before he could come back. But if he's clean and he didn't do it, then yeah, I think he will be given a second chance at some point down the road. It just may not be anytime necessarily soon. And his last question for the day, this is probably a bad idea, but what do you think of Wes Lee joining Hit Row? Good fit. No, I just don't like that. I know Hit Row, to a lot of people, has been missing something since they came back, and I get that. They're not exactly over by any means. They're not getting great reactions. I enjoy Hit Row. I don't mind Hit Row at all. They need something, though. They're not exactly lighting the world on fire over on SmackDown. That something was Swerve Strickland. The problem is that Swerve Strickland went to AEW after they fired him and will not be free for a very long time. By that point, Hit Row may not even be a thing in WWE anymore. They may have already broken them up, or they may have already left or gotten fired again. Who knows? But anyway, with Wes Lee, substituting Swerve for Wes Lee, I just don't think would be a good idea. If you're going to put anyone in that spot, it would be Carmelo Hayes. But I feel like even Carmelo doesn't need Hit Row, and he's better off on his own. He has Trick. They have a great dynamic together. I just feel like they need to heat up Hit Row as a tag team. Yeah, having Swerve was like the perfect person for that spot. Not to say no one can fill those shoes, but it would be very difficult knowing what Swerve brought to the group. And Swerve is amazing. I think a lot of people sleep on how good Swerve Strickland is. And hopefully at some point we could see them back together down the road. It could be years. He's probably happy in AEW. He says he is, and that makes sense. And that's fine, but Hit Row's kind of dying to death right now without him. That being said, to answer your question, no, like I said, I just don't think Wes Lee would be a good fit. Not a bad idea. I could think of far worse people to be in that group than Wes Lee. But Wes Lee isn't exactly whoever joins Hit Row should be the featured singles act. Wes Lee can be a featured singles star in NXT, and he's well on his way. He's probably the next NXT North American champion. But it's not exactly like his mic skills are amazing, and he doesn't feel like the featured player in a group like that. Swerve did. Carmelo would. Wes Lee is not that guy. I would probably just keep Hit Row the way it is, but do more to make people care about them, and try a little more, and get them more over, have them face the Usos at some point. Maybe that helps. Because whatever they're doing so far just ain't working, unfortunately. And that's going to do it, guys, for episode 462 of #AskGSM here today for Wednesday, October 5th, 2022. Thank you guys so much, as always, for sending in your questions to the show. If you want to tweet a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with #AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a question on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Also, if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe here to the channel. Hit that bell button as well to be notified every time a new video goes up. I greatly appreciate it. Have an awesome one, guys. I'm Graham GSM Matthews. Enjoy your Wednesday, and I'll catch your ass down the road.